Hello, 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 everybody. Stephen Mead here for Domicile real estate for people who love houses. This is our Southern California housing market update for May 11th, 2021. Okay, not clickbait in our title and our description this week. I've been having a lot of people talk to me and saying they feel like the market might be changing a little bit, and we kind of have mixed news on that front. So I'm going to pepper in my comments about bubbles and about what I think is going on as we go through our stats this week. And then at the end, I'm going to do a little bit of something else. We're creating some bonus content for you that's going to come out later this week. I am super excited about it. So I will go over that at the end. So let's get started. Let's get into it. And I'm going to tell you what's going on. So if we come in here, let me go back to our beginning on our stats here. Alrighty, so here's something that we're noticing. Number one is our inventory crisis has not averted. We still just don't have the total number of listings, that we are used to seeing. There have not been huge fluctuations. Maybe the number of listings under $1 million is up slightly. It might be down slightly, $1 to $2 million. But the reality is we're not seeing large movements in the number of in the number of homes that are actually for sale and active and available. Once again, just as a reminder, we run our statistics on Los Angeles and Orange counties, and the blue line signifies homes that are under $1 million, and then the red line signifies the $1 to $2 million price range. Depending on what market you're in, you might actually think the $1 to $2 million market is the entry level market in your area. But the reality is these markets sometimes move separately. They don't always move together. And actually this week, that is true. So if we jump in here, if we're talking about supply and demand, let's talk about our supply of new listings. As you can see here, we actually had another nice little increase in our under $1 million inventories. This is in the last 14 days, the number of new listings that have come onto the market. And if you look here, we're actually getting up there to about where we were maybe about a month ago and about where we were maybe even a month before that. We're kind of flirting with these high numbers, but the thing we're not seeing is this curve here. It didn't keep going. And this has been a very persistently kind of stubborn market with new listings not coming online. I think there's been a lot of talk about why this is. I think I've mentioned to you that my personal viewpoint, I'm going to go off the share here for a second because I like to actually look like I'm talking to somebody. My personal viewpoint is that this is not the result of coronavirus. I think that has been a bit of a scapegoat, that people don't want to put their houses on the market because of coronavirus. I actually think the reason people don't want to put their house on the market is because they are afraid they're not going to find something else to buy, and they don't have a lot of confidence, and they're nervous about it, and they want to stay put. Because one of the things that's happened, and I've caught myself thinking this way. I bought the current home that I am in 2015, right? So I've been here almost 6 years. Financially, it's been a good move. One of the things I find, and I am in this business, I'm in this industry every day, I find myself just thinking how thankful I am that I am currently in a house and that I am not in the market looking, because I know it's a tough market out there. And I feel like if me being an informed industry insider feels this way, how do normal buyers and sellers feel? How do people that have their home on the market, who are watching maybe some of their younger friends who are trying to get into the market, who are struggling to find those houses, are they worried that they will be in a situation where if they sell their house first, they may not find something else and they'll be left with nothing? Fear of losing something is very powerful on people, and I really think that is the primary effect that is in place right now. It is not coronavirus. So jumping back into this supply graph here, jumping back in here, I think that's explaining why these numbers are persistently low. Again, on our $1 to $2 million, same story. Little run up in spring, eased off. Now ever so slight increases, but we're not really making any headway versus where we were 2 months ago. It's just not happening. So if this is our supply side, of course, of the equation, let's take a look at our demand side. And what do we see here on our demand side, right? We see that demand is also fairly steady. It had a run up, maybe increased a little bit. This little mark you see down here about a month ago, that is interest rates getting higher. We've seen some slight decreases, the last 2 weeks, maybe last week. Things are pretty flat on this front. I think we're just seeing a lot of stagnation in this. My theory again here is that we are in a supply constricted market. We're just really not seeing enough listings. I think if we had more listings, we would see the new escrow number go up as well. That's the reason why these charts look so similar in their shapes, is because I think that the number of new escrows is being driven, unsurprisingly, by the number of new listings coming to the market. Now, one thing I do think that's a little interesting is look what happened over here in our more luxury segment. That actually reached a new high. And I think we have a lot of people in that luxury segment who really are wanting to take advantage of these interest rates in the long run. I think they're feeling more comfortable about jobs. They're feeling more comfortable about income prospects. And they're saying, now is the time to buy, that more luxury oriented property in that $1 to $2 million price range. So if we reconcile our absorption rates, we kind of see an interesting story. Now, you'll remember that something that I mentioned before was that a lot of times these markets move similarly, but sometimes they don't. And now is one of those times that they don't. And we have a very kind of unique thing happening, which is we are almost having an absorption inversion, meaning our absorption rate is higher in the luxury market than it is in this under $1 million, under 1 million sort of entry level market. Now, the reality is this is all very relative, right? If we're looking at this, we are still seeing these absolute numbers are in the mid 80s for both of these as of this week. That is still very much a strong seller's market. But if you look here for our luxury, our $1 to $2 million market, we're hitting a new high. It has never been this high as it is right now in 2021. And if we look here, if we look here in our under $1 million market, we're seeing a relative period where it is low. So if you're the kind of buyers in that under $1 million market, congratulations. This is about one of the easiest weeks we have seen in 2021 for you to get an offer accepted. Now, easy, of course, once again, is a relative term. Easier and easier, not the same thing. If we're going to our prices, remember, this reflects what is happening. These close prices are based on contracts that were negotiated 4 to 6 weeks ago. Now, what did I say last week? I'm gonna go off of this, and I'm just gonna recap. I told you that last week my expectation is that that period of flat prices was going to come to an end, because that was during the era of rising interest rates. And then when interest rates started to go back down, what are prices going to do? They're going to go up by comparison. Now let's go back to that graph and take a look and see what we have going on. Did that prediction come true? Well, guess what? It did. Look at where prices went in all three of our price categories. So our entry level 25th percentile market, prices increased. Our median market, this is kind of in this under 1 million, but still kind of over like 750, 800,000, increased by a big amount. This was a big week for prices. And what I mean by that is 4 to 6 weeks ago was a big week for prices. Now, I'm probably not telling you anything you don't know if you've been looking in the market, because if you were in the market 4 to 6 weeks ago, you would have noticed this. And again, look at what is happening here in our 75th percentile market. A very, very strong price increase week over week. And remember, again, this is based on our data of 4 to 6 weeks ago of contracts. And look, as soon as these lowering of interest rates are starting to come back and percolate through the system, we're seeing prices increase as a result. Now, this is our percent active after 14 days in the market. And we see some kind of fascinating news here. Look at what happened in our luxury $1 to $2 million market. It took a dive. It started a little bit last week, and this past week, I mean, this is a big dive in listing availability. This means especially the things that just came onto the market, they're getting snapped up. Now, if we look here over in our under 1 million market, you see that it did go down week over week. But look at where we are overall in this chart. We're still very much, we're at a relative high point. I think that, again, that what we're seeing happening here is that we are seeing, we're still in a very supply constricted market. I think there might be a little bit more availability under $1 million than there was before, maybe a slight amount. It's a little bit easier, but people really aren't liking some of the things they're seeing. And I think there are some houses they're just passing over completely. They're just saying, that house is no good. I'm not spending these prices for that. If it's an undesirable house, it's an undesirable house. Now, if we look at our list close ratio, I think, again, that sort of reflects this idea, right, that because of the interest rates dropping 4 to 6 weeks ago, because remember, our close to list ratio is based on the sales that are closing this past week, meaning these were negotiated 4 to 6 weeks ago. Look at where it happened. We are back up here to this kind of 103.5, heading towards 104%. And what's crazy about this number to me is this is an average across the whole market, right? That means that on average, properties are closing for close to 4% over list price. Just to put real numbers with that, that would mean that on a $500,000 house, that means the average $500,000 listing is closing at close to $520,000, right? And obviously, when you go to $1 million, that means we are looking at 40,000 over list price on average. Some properties, of course, will be much higher above list price. Some will be much lower than that. Now, if we look at our days on market, right, for our new contracts. So again, this is looking back over the past 14 days. What was that average days on market? And again, this is a tight market. So what I think is interesting is when the absorption rate drops for our under 1 million, and I'm going to back up here and show you that our absorption rate dropped, but so did our days on market. What does that mean? Well, basically, what that means is it's saying those cream of the crop properties are the ones that are going ever faster on the market. So we're seeing a concentration of attention towards those properties, meaning some of these ultra long-term properties, some of those are just sitting on the market, not getting buyers. Now, again, we also saw a slight reduction in our 1 to 2 million, reaching really, I think we are just bumping on an overall all-time low for tracking, and we again bumped on another all-time low for our under 1 million. This is still in our market where you must act fast. The great news is, it means if you're a seller in this market and you have a house that people like, it also will get offers quickly. And if you've priced it reasonably well, it should get offers quickly and be under contract. Now, here's the bad news, right? And this is the bad news. Because of these lower interest rates and the price jump that they caused, look what happened to our affordability index. It is shooting back up here over 115%. We had a little bit of a dive here as interest rates went down. We were looking at those prices from 4 to 6 weeks ago. Now that prices are back on the rise, affordability is, of course, going down. Still, in the grand scheme of things, I think these are pretty good numbers. If June of 2018 was our baseline at 100%, it's saying that in absolute dollars, we only 15% up from that. I think to be up by that amount is not really up by a huge amount. I'm actually pretty pleased with these numbers. But, it does make me wonder, how much higher can we go on this? That will be a topic that I'm going to jump into here in a second and give you a preview. By the way, this is our prevailing mortgage rates, right? And looking at this, look where we were 4 to 6 weeks ago. Mortgage rates peaked, then they fell off, and now they've been kind of hovering again right around this 3% sort of number, back where we were back in sort of that March area. Okay, that kind of concludes running through our stats, but I want to talk about something else, and this is that bubble talk. If you watch our first-time homebuyer update, we kind of went over this. We're creating some bonus content to talk about, are we in a bubble? And as usual, we're going to talk about the reasons we are and the reasons that we are not. So we're going to tell you both sides of this rather than the typical realtor speak of we're never in a bubble, which is pretty much what all agents will say all the time. The other thing I want to talk about is, there are really two things that lead to sort of a real estate bubble or even a declining market. So item number one is that the market fundamentals are affecting supply and demand, right? This means affordability is down, availability suddenly increases, inventory suddenly floods into a market. These are things that affect that supply and demand balance, and they can result in changes in price and downward pressure on price. But there's a second thing that I think can sort of lead to bubble behavior. And I think this might be describing a little bit of our softness, our slight softness in that sort of under $1 million market. And I think that is this sort of notion that bubbles or even demand weakness can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. So if enough people are talking about there being a bubble, there will be a bubble, right? And the hard part about that is that this is not an absolute meaning. It's not there is a bubble or there isn't a bubble. That can just result in a little bit of softness to demand, right? Where affordability hasn't changed much, but all of a sudden demand starts softening, right? And that's mainly because of people's perceptions about the future of the market. So that's just a taste. We're actually going to have a lot of this in our extra content that is coming up later this week. We're working on some special slides, some special stats for you that I think are going to be great. Really kind of looking forward to that discussion. As always, write stuff in the comments. If you're watching this on Facebook, do it there. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. We love comments. We always love to hear from you. And if you're looking to buy or sell real estate or advice in the Southern California area, definitely give us a shout out. You can comment or you can contact us. It'll actually be in our description. And have a great week, everybody. We will see you later on for our Bubble Talk special update. Hit that notification bell so you know when that comes out. We'll see you soon.